My name is Chris Berant, and snowmobiling is my passion. This wide-open podcast is here to share stories, tips, and tactics to make you a more successful backcountry rider.
So
you're crushing it.
I know. Hey, Paul, do you wish you would have stayed working at Wells Fargo and making money?
That's a hard no. I'd much rather work way more hours and get paid way less.
Okay. All right, here we go. All right, what's up, everybody? Our weekly podcast here at I haven't done a podcast since November or December, but
you get A for effort.
No, I don't. It's like an F for effort this year. But gosh dang, dude. I know. I'm going to quit saying that we're going to do podcasts every week because realistically, understaffed, overworked, and I just don't have time.
Nobody cares, bud. If you complain, nobody cares.
That's right. But today we are doing a podcast. I've got my good friend Paul Thacker here. Paul, welcome back.
Thanks, sir.
Well, dude, yesterday when I'm like, hey, we're doing a podcast tomorrow. So you're here doing another veteran ride here at BBA, which has been awesome. We've been doing these since we were talking about this, 2013 or 14.
I think 13 was the first year that I did one at Togety.
Uh-huh.
Or 2012, and then I did 2 at Togety, and then I think 14 was the first year. So over 10 years. It's wild.
That's cool.
So I wish we could do like 10 of them a year here.
I know, huh?
It's just, logistics and money.
Yep.
You know how it goes.
We'll get to that, but I want to go all the way back to the beginning. So, you and I, it's been interesting, right? We've kind of had some similar paths.
Very.
Yeah, very. I was thinking, we were joking before we jumped on here. Hey, Paul, would you have ever thought that your high-paying Wells Fargo, it was Wells Fargo, right?
Yeah, Wells Fargo Financial.
Yeah, Wells Fargo Financial up in Alaska. You're an AK boy, making bank up there, doing good. And you did something very similar to what I did when I was making really good money as a district sales manager at Arctic. Both you and I, about the same time, got a call from Slednecks saying, hey,
we want to be a movie star.
Want to be a movie star, go get blown up and get paid like really good money for like potentially dying? And we're like, yeah, we do.
Yeah. I remember that conversation with my boss because I was like, man, I can't, because we had to be gone a month.
Yeah, a month.
And there was just no way I didn't have that much, time off. And I sat down and I'm like, man, what should I do? I've got this great, Fortune 500 company, this career path that's paying me well, and I'm really doing I'm very successful. And I've got this, sled side, which I absolutely love, but I'm not, making any money or not very much money, but I'm like, what do I do? And my boss, actually, Mark Hamlin at the time, was like, man, he goes, one of these choices has a shelf life. The other one you can do whenever you want. And which was kind of caught me by surprise. Like, I was not expecting when I was like, hey, what should I do? I expected, well, you should do the adult thing and stay, keep, on the career path. Anyway, he kind of was like, man, you got to give it a shot, and you can come back here anytime, which was amazing. So that was a big, life-changing decision that he helped me make. So yeah, and then man, the rest is history.
Well, just like what we talked about yesterday with the vets here, we're given all of these pathways in life, and there's the easy way and the hard way, and we have.
I wish I knew an easy way.
Well, the easy way would have been to keep wearing that suit and tie
for sure.
every day, and
I'd be, for all practical purposes, a rich man and probably miserable as shit. Miserable,
right? Yeah. Okay, so again, we're gonna get to that too, dude. We have so much to cover. This is gonna be like a 9-hour podcast.
Well, we could do part 1, and maybe next year or sometime we'll do part 2.
We could do that.
Yeah.
So let's start from the very, very beginning. You grew up in Alaska. Snow machined.
Yep.
You're I see. I've done my homework here. It's not snowmobiling. Snow machining.
There's a reason we call it snow machining. Actually, there's not. I have no idea.
Okay. Okay. Good. So as a kid, growing up in Alaska, obviously snow, winter, like give me the whole spiel. Parents threw you on a sled, I'm assuming. How'd it go down?
Yeah, so I rode a bit as a young kid, like, first grade, second grade, on friends' sleds. Elan actually was the first one I ever
Mine
rode.
too. Yep.
And I actually raced the Willow Carnival and got second place in the junior class, and I was pretty proud of that.
No big deal.
I still have that trophy, in fact, on an Elan that had one of those plastic sleds as the half cowling, so it was black with a red sled duct tape to it.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a picture of that somewhere. It's pretty sweet. So, yeah, I guess I was probably 12 when I got my first snow machine. I'd worked all summer, for my parents. They owned an air taxi service, flew people out hunting, fishing, and whatnot. I made $1,200 in the summer.
Whoa.
And
dude, that's big money back then.
It was big money, dude. I was pretty.
Wow.
Like $100 bills I had in my little satchel.
Yeah. No wonder you were drawn to the bank industry.
That's
I
right.
like money.
Anyway, our neighbor had a snow machine for sale, which was a 79 John Deere liquefier.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought that, and I got a new helmet, I got all the gear, and then I rode it once on the lake, and then my parents were away, and I took it up to the gas station the second day. On the way home, I was going through the parking lot, and I was like hot rodding a little because I was pretty badass on my new liquefier, and I was looking at the people that were looking at me at the gas station and not paying attention to the car that was pulling on the right.
No.
So this truck came in. I saw it last minute, and I just pinned it, and I went and jumped off the snow berm through the 12x12 plastic Willow video sign. I shit you not.
This is day 2 on your show.
This is day 2, yeah. Anyway.
And that's when I knew I was a Sledneck.
Anyway, fortunately, handlebars broke, windshield, everybody was okay. And I confessed my transgressions that night and went back up. My parents drove me back up, and I told the lady I smashed her sign. And anyway, I spent the next summer paying for the sign. But that led my parents to believe that, maybe that 440 was a little too much sled. So my dad took the John Deere liquefier, and we went down to Polaris, and I got a 88 Indy Sport.
Dude, it's so funny, listening to this, right? So, you posted a picture of your 88 Indy 340. It's that, it's the blue.
Oh, it's such a great sled, man.
Beautiful sled. And so the people who've listened to several of our podcasts here, I mean, we had my grandparents' cabin, grew up there. That's how I became to know of snowmobiling, all of that. Started on the Elan, and then, we had a Scorpion and an Evinrude and all this stuff. But our first big family purchase was an 87 Indy 340. Yeah. Like, that was that transformed snowmobiling.
Dude,
right?
I used to sit in 4th grade with the Polaris.
Dude,
the brochure, and I'm like, this is the one.
This
is the one I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's cool. And Paul, this is what's fun about doing a podcast like this. As you're talking about this, I'm just rewinding and watching my life and, getting in trouble because this Snow West magazine is, in my binder and it's in the cover. And, I had SLP's catalog memorized and the phone number and the address memorized. I mean, all this stuff, right? We were very addicted to this sport that somehow we've been able to make a living at.
100%. Yeah. I mean, so as a kid, I'm not old enough to drive a car. I mean, we rode snow machines. That's how cool. That was our mode of transportation. I grew up in Willow, Alaska, which is, an hour and a half north of Anchorage. There's no city. There's a gas station and a little grocery store and a post office at the time. Mm-hmm. There's more now, but, so, yeah, you wanted to go to your buddy's house. You hopped on your sled and drove, rode 10 miles, 6 miles, wherever. And we even rode them to school a few times.
Yeah.
That wasn't as fun because, it was fun to go riding, but it wasn't fun to go riding to school.
Yeah.
That just wasn't as cool. And, of course, I always forgot my shoes, so I'm wearing freaking moon boots around. But, yeah, so I had a 88 Indy Sport. I had that one, and then I got a 90 Indy Sport because I was putting 5,000 miles on a sled in a season.
Jeez.
It was so much.
That's awesome.
They didn't even believe when we took them in for service. They're like, there's no way you put this many miles on a machine. I'm like, every day.
Yeah.
In the winter. Didn't matter if it was 40 out or 40 below, we were riding. And then my first real like man sled was I bought my dad's 90 Indy 500.
Oh, dude.
Still that's probably dude.
Wait till you.
I know, I've seen the
you
pictures.
saw.
Oh yeah,
it's here.
It is like that. That was still probably my all-time of all the snowmobiles I've. It's just was such a great black with the little silver and the blue. I mean, just
Sexy.
Man, it was so that kind of and then about that time I was in my teens and I was playing hockey, and then I discovered girls and I kind of stopped riding. So I played hockey, and then I actually was pretty proficient at that as well. So after high school, I played through high school, and then I went and played junior hockey, and then I went to college and played college hockey, and then I came back to Alaska after that, and I played. It was a West Coast league at the time. I played with the Aces for a little bit, and that didn't really pan out. And I had some opportunity to continue playing hockey at a pretty high level, and I was engaged at the time, and my significant other to be didn't think that was the correct career path. It's funny. I was just talking about that this morning. How, I really have one, like, I'm not really much for regrets. Like, you get what you get.
Yeah.
And, you make the decisions and you move on and you deal with them however that's one of them though. Like, I never really got a chance to see just how far I could take it, because this particular girl was like, you need to start thinking about a career and a family and, so I like to call it, I made the adult decision, not necessarily the right decision, but, it led me to, where I am today. So.
Well, that's just what I was going to say. So, that's a little bit of a regret in your mind. However, look where it brought you. It brought you to.
I mean, I don't lose any sleep over it, but I'll
but
always wonder,
like,
because I'm a huge hockey fan. Like I love watching hockey and know it well, and I'm always like, man, I feel like I could have played at this level. I mean, maybe not. I mean, maybe that's just me in my head. But so yeah, I quit playing hockey, and at the time, you'd know if you stopped riding today, you wouldn't know what to do with yourself. That's kind of where I was at in my life, and I was out drinking too much, and I was getting in fights, and just I was not spending
you were
my
a
time.
Hockey player, weren't you?
I was not spending my time very constructively. So my roommate and I at the time, we kind of came to this joint decision that we were going to buy a couple of late season XC700s.
Oh, yep, the white one, white hood?
No,
black hood.
It was red.
Oh,
red.
What year?
It was like a January build.
Okay, got it. Yep.
When they had the EV, the first, power valves. Anyway, so I'm like, we'll just get a couple sleds. We'll go ride on the weekends a little, and it'll be fun. I don't need to be getting too crazy about it. Yeah, that lasted about 2 weeks, and I signed up for the Mayor's Cup in Alaska. That just gnarly, bombed-out cross-country race. Anyway, that kind of started the next chapter. And ironically, I was just started at Wells Fargo Financial that summer. So I had these two, like, parallel career paths. And, I started racing, finding some success, and then snowcrossing, and
But at that time, Paul, right? Like, and same in my scenario is you could call it a career path, and in your mind, you're like, I want to be a professional snowmobiler. And at that time, that's why you went that route, right? The only people that were making money, they were racing, right? Like snowcross, or basically snowcross. There was cross country back then, or whatever.
The racers, exactly. There was no other, nothing else really.
And then you come to find out, like, well, even if you win, you're not making money, right? I mean, it's so you're having to work a real job to fund the habit of, and this dream or ambition of wanting to do that. And so, but as we keep progressing in life and seeing those things and those opportunities and a little success on the snowmobile side of things, it really starts turning the mind, right? So where, we have a lot to talk about, right? We get to talk about Slednecks and distance jumping and X Games and all that stuff. So let's start to talk about, so you ended up racing, seeing a little success there. How did that start correlating into, like, hey, maybe I can do this for a living? Hey, there's these crazy guys going nuts jumping. I'm fairly good at jumping, Slednecks, all that stuff. How did you roll into that?
So I guess it would have been probably my second or third season racing snowcross in Alaska, where I was winning both the pro stock and open classes. And, you know, at the time we had big snowcross classes in Alaska. So I'd make, $1,200 a class.
Dang, nice.
So, I'm starting to I'm not, I like to say I was making money, but you're sure as hell not making any money. You're spending as much, I'm kind of close to breaking even. So I was like, oh, okay, well, what I was discovering is that I really liked the jumping aspect. Shocker. So, making that, that triple or that double into a triple, or that finding that breaking bump and, sniper landing type stuff. That was something that I was pretty proficient at. So I had actually gone down and raced a little in the States and found some success down there at the national level. And I was like, man, I still wasn't sure if I was going to be able to be a full-time racer. So I kind of got to this point where I was like, okay, I have this, professional career that's going well, and then I'm doing pretty good in the snow side, but one of them is going to have to give because, I'm taking a lot of time off. My team, I'm leaving my team and my Wells Fargo team, and I'm like, it's not really fair. So I was actually thinking about leaving quitting racing.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got a call from my buddy who was building the track. This was like a Sunday afternoon, and I was out helping an ice race, and he's like, hey, man, do you think a 440 could do a 80-foot double? And I was like, well, yeah, I guess if you've got the right, run up and conditions, well, I don't see why not. He's like, well, I built this jump at the snowcross track. It jumps from the parking lot over the road and all this shit. He's like, would you come check it out? And I'm like, absolutely, I'll swing by. I had my trailer and sleds and coming back from riding. Anyway, so I get there and there's this jump, and it's a death gap, right? It's like 2 lanes of parking in and out traffic with a ramp to the snowcross that's built in this snow dump. And by then, some of the Sledneck guys local in Alaska, I knew them. I just had never been a part of it. Turning In hardcore guys were there, and they're all standing on the landing, and they're like, hawing, and they're like, man, I don't know, that's a long way. It's like, if you come up short, it's going to be, it's going to hurt. And I'm like, I kind of looked at it, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? It's no bigger. It's just a gap. It's the same jump, just isn't a tabletop. So I just was like, I got this. I just unloaded my shit, rolled over at once, and then just started hitting it. And by then I could do heel clickers and, cans and stuff from snowcross. And at the time.
Yeah, the 3 jumps, Superman,
the only ones.
Yeah,
That's all you
100%.
I'm still good at those, by the way. Anyway, so the Landry boys were there filming because that was part of their. Anyway, they were just like, "Who is this clown? Who does he think he is?" And then I hit this jump, and they're like, "We got to get that guy in the backcountry."
Do you guys hear this story and how very similar? It's no different than me at West Yellowstone, snow crossing, sucking at snow crossing, just wanting to.
I mean,
hit
in my
the
defense,
jumps.
I was actually halfway decent.
Yeah,
I remember that
were.
time we raced snowcross together.
Let's not talk about that.
It's super funny. Sorry.
Anyway, and then it transitioned to me doing the freestyle show in West Yellowstone, and Jason Moriarty coming up to me after that, dude, you look dumb and willing to do anything. Would you like to come film with us? Hell yeah, So and the Landry brothers, Turnagain Hardcore, Alaska was back. And they still are, but, back in that day from a progression standpoint, holy shit, dude. Guys not afraid to go big. Some awesome cinematography with those guys, backdrop of Alaska. I mean, everything was really cool and sounded like that was a little bit of a transition from the snowcross to.
Yeah, 100%. So they were like, hey, man, we want to get you. When can you go? And I'm like, sure. I didn't really even know what to expect or what to.
Wearing
and they're like, hey, man,
stuff.
we've got this huge jump. They call it the world record jump. They're like, we want you to hit it. And these guys were doing this big, that first world record jump, you kind of went over the roll and then you could just float as long as you wanted to go. And these guys were doing 200 feet and they were yard sailing their brains out. And, and anyway, they got me up there and they're like, they took me to the first jump and I hit it a bunch of times. And they took me to the next jump and I hit it a bunch of times. And then they're like, okay, we're going to go to the world record jump. And it just was I'm jumping the wedge chassis with trailing arms, 250 feet. And it was just, those things flew so good. And they just were like, holy shit, I don't know who this guy is. He just kind of I mean, I literally pulled up in the parking lot with shirt and tie and threw my gear on, and we did a
Dude, I remember, I'll never forget one of the videos, and whether it was a Slednecks or a Turn Again film, you and your Mercedes with your freaking suit and tie.
Well, the Mercedes was later.
Okay, but I mean, like,
there's a good story about the Mercedes, but
that was you, right? Like, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I left work and showed up at the parking lot and put my gear on and took about, I don't know, we did a segment in like 3 hours.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, all the jumps were built, and I just went and hit them, and that kind of was, from that point forward, that's when Slednecks called in and like, hey, we want you to. It's kind of funny because
how did the Slednecks deal happen?
So at the time, Turnagain and Slednecks were sharing some footage.
Okay.
There was like a little Alaska segment.
Yep.
And John Keegan called me, and he's like, "Hey man, we want you on the team." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome, man! I love your gear." At the time, I was wearing Oakley stuff, and the local Oakley rep would take care of me in Alaska. And I'm like, "Yeah, it's going to cost you $5,000." And he was like, "Or no, it was Fisher that called me first." That's right.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I think we'd be able to do that fine. Yeah, I'll get back to you." Next call was Keegan. He's like, "Yeah, you don't get $5,000, but you can wear our clothes." And I was like, "I appreciate that, but I already have a clothes sponsor." And I don't think he expected that at all. And so I went from like my name on the Slednecks box to a segment to like one clip in, I don't remember which Slednecks. Anyway, the next season I got a call again, and it was like, "Well, we can meet you in the middle." And that was like my first legitimate paid contract.
Making the big dollars.
Yeah, I was $2,500. I was killing it. But that's kind of when I was, I some more of that stuff, and that's when the jumping started really. There was a lot of fanfare about, this Thacker guy did a world record. Well, it's not a real world record. It's a big jump. But anyway, you know how that whole thing went.
Yep.
So that's when, we agreed with the Slednecks deal, and Moriarty and Keegan were like, let's do a legitimate, real flat ground, like the motocross guys' world record.
Yep. So that's probably, we're in 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there, right?
Yeah, 5. Yep.
5, okay. So couple big things are happening in 2005. We have the moto guys. We have Ryan Capes doing like these gigantor flat, like death gaps, right? And then, you're working on this deal. We've got the Red Bull Fuel and Fury event up in Alaska. We get to talk about that, right? Like, I wad my brains out, wreck my sled, and then here you come, like.
Yeah. They're like, "Hey, can Chris Brandt borrow your sled?" I'm like, No.
This guy sucks. Look at him.
He just yard sailed his shit and wants to borrow mine. I'm like, it's not a chance. Anyway, actually, I was like, yeah, absolutely, man, run it.
And all I remember when I first got on your sled, I'm like, wow, this isn't clapped out at all. This is really nice. I think I have a chance here. And ended up winning that event on your snowmobile, which was really cool. So
yeah, I was gone.
You weren't even there. Yeah. I know.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I do remember. I don't even remember who called me, and they're like, "Chris wrecked his stuff. Can he borrow your sled?" I was like, "Yeah, as long as he fixes it. If he breaks it."
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I said I get a portion of the winnings. I never saw that, but whatever.
Well, we're still.
I don't even know if you won anything, but
actually,
a trophy.
that one was. I got the trophy up there. That was cool, and and there was a little money involved, but that 05 to 07 time, right?
It was a big part.
Gosh dang, it was so cool because we have. Prior to that, you got Crusty Demons of Dirt on the moto side of things, and moto was a lot of our inspiration, right? Like from a freestyle standpoint, big jump standpoint, all of this stuff, and we're riding their coattails. We're a little in, nipping at their heels, right? Yeah. And when we see Ryan Capes going big, and then you guys and let's talk about. Gosh, I mean the Red Bull deal was really cool, but. Let's talk about the distance jump, because it's about at that time especially, it's really about as gnarly as it got.
Yeah, so it's funny. I never really looked at it that way.
You didn't look at the 200-foot death gap as gnarly?
So my mindset, I never did. So I always it didn't really matter if you were, as soon as you got over the gap part of any jump. Yeah. It was so much easier.
Tabletop.
Like you could hit a tabletop that was 100 feet, but if you made it a gap, everybody was freak out about it. But
you sound like my daughter.
but in my mind, when I was running up at the face, like it looked the same.
Yeah.
Like you can't see the gap.
You can't even see the landing.
It just looked the same. So I always just treated it as such. I was like, I have the confidence in my ability and my, machine that as long as things go the way I expect them to, we'll be fine. But anyway, so when Moriarty and Keegan and I were talking about that's
Jason and Keegan from Slednecks.
The owners, yeah.
So this was like kind of your first.
It was my first event, period.
With Slednecks and
with anyone.
Anyone. Okay,
besides
cool.
racing.
So this is after signing with Slednecks. You've done some filming with the Turnagain guys, getting a little bit of exposure.
Just a little
exposure, but now it's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, so I had the monster deal and the world record jump kind of all coalesced, came together at the same time. So
and what year is this? 05?
This is 05.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were looking, Monster was newish, or at least the Monster brand of Hansen beverage at the time was new, and they were looking for athletes. So I kind of just was like, hey, this is what I do. I got hooked up with Hollywood as the agent guy that.
Yep.
Anyway, so it all kind of was happening at the same time. Anyway, so I was still racing snowcross. So part of my Monster deal was to help the snowcross team, and then I would use the sleds for the world record jump at the end of the year. And
okay,
we working with Joe Duncan, obviously, who I worked with, and you with pretty much all our events.
Yep. We owe a lot to Joe.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, we decided we were gonna do it at Hill X in Park. Was it Park City? No.
No.
Hill City.
Yeah, Hill City. Park X.
Park
Hill
X
City.
at Hill City. That's right. Fuzzy brain this morning, apparently. Anyway, so that was all good. It had tons of snow. We had this, jump all set up. It was going to be piece of cake, lots of room. And then the weather changed. It was like 70 degrees the entire week in April before we were supposed to do this thing. And we were like, Joe every day, I think we're okay. And then he's like, I don't know, we're going to think about something else. So we decided the town of Hill City is like, you can basically do it at the airport because they have this grass strip. Anyway, so we started trucking snow. Actually, we trucked dirt first because there wasn't enough snow to build a landing. And if you've never seen Slednecks 9, you have to, because it is and that's just a brief little glimpse to what went into making that happen.
I mean, those big round bales of
hay. We started with dirt and hay, and then we topped it with snow. And I had a whole kerfluffle with my race team. I couldn't use the sleds. They wouldn't let me use the sleds. Myers Racing's like, yep, sorry, no, we're going to sell them. You can't use them.
Whoa.
I was like, okay. So I ended up using Ryan Simon's clapped out mod race sled. Like the thing was, Speedworks at the time rebuilt the motor, so I had a fresh motor, but the sled was just like, I'm looking at it, it's got bent running boards and dents all over and cracks in the hood, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I didn't actually think that. But anyway, so yeah, we ended up, able to pull off this, basically nothing short of a miracle event. The whole town of Hill City came out. Like, they closed the school for the day. All the kids were there. That's
cool.
It was super cool. And the jump itself, it was kind of like the way we set it up, it was as safe as you could make something like that. Keegan was like, well, how comfortable do you feel on your first jump? And I'm like, why don't we put the gap at like 70 feet?
Okay.
I feel like that's something I can mind speed pretty easy because we don't have gears, right? There's no, hit it fourth tapped or whatever. Sure. It's just like people ask me that. I'm sure.
How fast were you going?
I'm like, I don't know, mind speed.
Yeah.
So, we'd hit it and then we would, we had a speed gun and figure out how fast I was going, how far I went. We'd measure it, and then we'd pull the ramp back 25 feet. And we did that till we had a 200-foot gap.
Is that what it ended up being from a gap standpoint?
I think the gap on that one was like 180 or 190.
Okay.
And I was landing the last one actually because I sucked the base gasket and actually blew the sled up. You could
going
see
in
on the run in. You can actually see the white exhaust. And I went 238 was the first one.
Yeah. And
as I landed and turned around, the antifreeze was just pouring in the running board out the bottom of the sled. And I was like, well, I guess we're done, because.
So 238?
238 was the first one.
So watching that, on Slednecks 9, just like everybody else, all, being able to put myself in your shoes and, jumping and all this stuff, that all I kept thinking about, I'm like, is, we're not, I'll say we, because we're in that similar mindset. I'm not worried about me, but I'm worried about the other variables, right? And a big variable is the snowmobile. And in good conditions of snow, having snow, and you're doing it on this setup that is very foreign. And I worry. That's what all I was worried about is like, dude, what if the sled? I mean, you got a jet for 60 degrees? The sled runs like crap. Oh man. So that's all I kept thinking about.
People have asked me that question a lot of times, like, what goes through your head, or what are you thinking about when you're, and I'm sure you're the same. Any professional athlete or athlete at the absolute pinnacle of their sport, like, there's a level of risk you have to accept, or you'll never be as good as you can be. It's that simple. If you're always worried about the consequences, you're never going to have, a clear enough mind to complete the task at hand. And I was like, look, I know that I can do this, and I'm going to make sure to be as prepared as possible, and I'm not going to worry about what's going to happen, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Like, I'll deal with those consequences, obviously, as they come. Yeah. So I was like, this is the risk I am prepared to take.
Yeah.
And people, it's like, it's not a go home in an ambulance. It's like, I'm probably going in a box, like,
potentially. Right.
And I was okay with that. Like, I loved what I was doing, am doing still, to the point where I just was willing to risk it all.
So we set the world record. You set the world record. Slednecks is stoked. You're stoked and these types of events in life, guys. So, same deal. 05, I win Red Bull Fuel and Fury. What happens when, something that we want so damn bad and you work so hard for it and you accomplish it? It's unreal what it does from a mindset perspective. It's like you go up another level and you unlock another level and you unlock another level. And so that had to be huge for you from a more of a mental standpoint, and like, okay, what's next?
Well, for sure. I mean, not only like an exposure standpoint. I mean, It was big. Now I've got.
And were you signed with Monster?
I was, yeah.
Like first,
so
one of the first, or were you the first? First Monster Energy athlete.
Oh,
for snowmobile.
Second. Tucker and I were almost
Tucker.
like, Tucker was like just before.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But no, that first jump. So I didn't have, I just had a tiny little salary that they paid for the season. There was no like bonus contingency for anything, and but it was a huge springboard for everything that came after. That jump got a tons of exposure. Now I'm on the map.
Yeah.
Like now, if you are a snowmobiler and you do it avidly, you knew who I was. That was pretty cool.
Sure. Okay, so you do the world record jump. What's next?
So it was basically from day one of the distance jumping, the goal was to jump a football field. Mm-hmm. I was not satisfied that we only went 238. It was cool that we did it. We in the most adverse conditions you could probably even dream up, we made it happen. That was a rad thing, but we didn't. The goal was not met yet.
And is this the time when Capes and Matto were they?
Capes had just done 300 feet.
He did 300.
300 foot. Yeah, it was like just shy of 300 or just over 300. Uh-huh. So I was like, we can do this and beyond. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt. Mm-hmm. So I went back to Monster and I did all of my own contractual work. Like I was my own marketing manager. I was the athlete manager. I did all of it. So I went back to Monster and I'm like, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what it's going to cost you. And that's when about that time is when I actually, just about that similar time is when we got the call to go
Hollywood
to Sweden.
Yep. Well, let's dive into that, right? So one big event in your life, let's just say, let's say that was and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a springboard event, right?
Absolutely.
Springboard. Okay. No different for myself in, X Games. We didn't have X Games yet.
I think actually I did. No, we were. So I'm a little bit behind because I did 2 jumps before we.
Okay.
So it was after the second
Canterbury.
jump, and you had done X Games. So it was so yeah,
yeah, you're right.
I went back and got a second contract with Monster that had bonus structure, and if I did another world record, I got a bonus, and then they were all about like, let's do an event.
And
that's
how
Canterbury came about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll pause Sweden real quick. So you do the world record 2:38. Could have gone farther, but sled blows up, and so now, like, smart businessman, let's put some contingency in this, right?
Doing this,
how can we get paid? Still doing Wells Fargo at this point?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Full time.
So same deal, right? Like, I'm full-time employee, wearing my suit and tie at Arctic winning X Games. Same deal.
Yeah, for sure. I had to. My first jump, I didn't make any money.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. I was signed for $2,500 with Slednecks.
Oh yeah, you're killing it.
$2,500.
Crushing.
But yeah, all the money that was for the season was spent. There was no bonus anyway. So now we're like, okay, let's do a legit.
So is this next season?
So this is the following season. This will be 2007.
Okay. So same year as
X Games.
Yep.
So yeah, before, because you had won X Games. That's the first X Games I ever went to. I was not participating. I was a spectator, and yeah, dude, that was a wild event, man. I remember like talking about that downhill backflip. You and I chatting about it, and you're like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "I think you got it." Like, you just.
I'm like, good enough for me.
He's like, "Oh, okay." Paul said it's okay. I'm gonna go do it. No, but I mean, there was no doubt watching. Like, it was whoever was going to take that final risk was going to win, and you were the one that did it first, man. It was a cool. I remember being down there after you won, and you hugged a bunch of people, and I was just shook your hand and gave you a hug. That was a pretty rad moment.
Yeah, I'm like chilling up here. I mean, we've both had these life-defining moments where we could have gone one way or the other, and X Games obviously for me was the one, right? Like, that was the one where if I want to do this for real, this is a calculated risk that I'm willing to make right here. And it was awesome being able to, you were there, you weren't competing, and so, but like, you could put yourself in all of the riders' mindset. Like, you've done all this, you've been there, and like, that's what's so awesome, right? Is like talking with a person like you, or like even after my X Games career, and I was going and I was announcing for ESPN, and those guys were coming to me like, what do you think? I'm like, dude, like, well, you've got it, right? Like, yeah, I'm not on the course with you, but like, for all we're looking for is reassurance that we're not going to die.
Well, the opinion matters. Like people with similar mindsets and experiences. Yeah, you definitely that carries a lot of weight than just the layman that's like, oh man, I think you got it.
Yeah.
But somebody that has been through it and knows it.
Yeah.
Those opinions definitely.
When you heard my sled slower on the in run coming down, what
there was no, I didn't, even before you went, I knew you were going to do it. Like, because you were willing, if you wanted to win, you were willing to take the risk that not everybody was willing to do, because it's what you wanted, man. Mm-hmm. So obviously X Games happened. That was super cool experience for me, for the sport, for you. It was for even me. Like, I'm like, this is cool. Like, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to be here. Like, I'm gonna be here. How I don't know yet, because I had tried with snowcross and I could never quite make it to X Games. So,
well, that's interesting. That's going to play into the story in a little bit here. But you being at X Games, being a spectator, I mean, that lit the fire for freestyle, I'm assuming.
100%. Yeah. Well, there's 2. That was the first one. We'll get to the second one.
Okay.
So now I've
07, same year as X Games. I win X Games. You're now Canterbury.
We're gonna do this first freestyle invasion tour style.
That's
right. At Canterbury with a world record jump and a live crowd. anyway, I was like, the setup was awesome. Like
we
get the first day, we're there on early in the week, and they're building the landing, and it's huge snow landing because we went after they'd had the snow cross, so with all the snows there, and the setup was dialed. Like I was stoked. We did a few practice jumps. I'm like, this is gonna be sick.
It was. I was there for that event. I was doing the freestyle side, and
then the weather rolled in.
You were, but prior to the weather, I mean, and again, guys got to go watch Slednecks. Is it
10?
10? Yeah.
10.
Slednecks 10. Go watch Slednecks 10. You'll see, me doing silly things at X Games. You'll see Paul at this event, and dude, it was so gnarly. But you were making it look so easy. You were on a 600, I believe.
Yep.
And I was on a 440, and all I wanted to do was just train in with you. I'm like, dude, this looks so fun.
Yeah, the setup was awesome. The practice jumps were awesome. We were, oh man, it was awesome. And then this storm rolls in, and it's like the most snow that Minnesota had gotten in 25 years or something like that. It's blowing in snow, blizzard conditions. And I'm like, oh, well, we're probably going to cancel it. And then, this is a Saturday night event.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, these people just start showing up in droves.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
packed.
They're like, well, are you going to jump? I mean, and at first it was a few people, and then it was more, and then it was more. And there's thousands and thousands of people coming from all over. Like some of them drove 16 hours from from New York and Pennsylvania and the roads are complete shit.
Yep.
It's, there are road closures all over. Anyway, and we all kind of decided that, if these people can risk life and limb to come then the show's going to go on.
We all said that, right?
Yeah.
Like we were, from a freestyle standpoint, we're like,
it's windy and blowing, snow blowing side. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're jumping and landing 4 feet over and all this stuff, but as they say, the show must go on.
Yeah.
And no one would have said anything if you said, dude, this is way too gnarly.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
But you said, this is pretty gnarly, but I'm in.
We got to go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did it. I don't even remember it. The conditions were super gnarly. It was a full on blizzard and blow. Unfortunately, that year I had a tailwind, so it wasn't so bad.
A little better, yeah.
Because the next one we did was not as good with a headwind.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So what distance did you get on that event? Remember?
I think that was the one we went 270-ish in the blizzard. Because I think something along we obviously beat the previous record, in worse conditions than the one we'd done before.
Sure.
And I felt that was, still not the goal, but considering what we were riding in, and the people were stoked, we were stoked.
Yeah.
Everybody was safe. It was, we broke the record and then we shut it down.
I'm trying to remember. I think. Were you hitting that at about 80 miles an hour?
That one was 84, 85. Yeah.
Coming in full
just
tuck.
Wearing tear-offs because you can't. I mean, I had tear-offs on so that I could pull a tear-off and then hit the run because it was so snowy.
Yeah. 84 miles an hour into ramp.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was almost a step up. I mean,
it was a great setup.
Yeah.
The
probably
landing,
the best
the landing
one
was 30 feet tall. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huge snow landing.
Canterbury, another world record. People, like you said, people are stoked. Events stoked. More momentum.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that one was probably the most hyped worldwide of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
That thing was on the Weather Channel. It was on, and this was kind of the early stages of social media. It got pushed out to all of the cable news and channels across the world.
Yeah.
It was something I think if I remember correctly, Chad, the fellow that was doing the media with Monster, he said it was 30,000 cable networks across the country that picked it up, and it was a big hit. Because the conditions they're like, this guy's an idiot. He's probably going to die, but I didn't, so that was good.
So this is a question you don't have to answer, but I always get asked all the time, well, what did you make for X Games money wise? What did you make for that jump? Do you remember?
So I think the bonuses for the jump, if I remember correctly, were $50,000.
Sweet. I really sucked. I should have had you do my contract for
No,
Monster.
30 grand.
Okay, mine was 20.
No, I think now. Anyway, something along those lines. 30,
Okay.
30 grand, 40 grand, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which back in the day, like, I mean, again, we wanted to do this for us, but I'll be 100% honest. For me, I was 100% doing it for the money, man.
Well,
I didn't have any. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, that was kind of like the first, where I was, because I was still working full time.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, like I'm actually making some money here. Like if I do this right, I could potentially do this.
Yeah.
And do it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was, so the next, so I was, again, I still wasn't making enough money
to quit the
to quit.
good job.
I mean, I was making six figures,
mm-hmm.
And with potential to make a whole lot more on the, the finance side of things. And that's when we got the call that fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was I didn't think he was serious.
So the call we're talking about, both Paul and I got a call from John Keegan at Slednecks of, hey, I just got contacted by a Hollywood producer. They're doing a Vin Diesel movie, and they need some stunt riders for a snowmobile scene, but you're going to need to fly to Sweden, and you're going to be gone for a month.
Yep. So that's when I was like, there's no way I can, if I do this, I got to.
One way or the other.
And it's ironic because Keegan was one of, also helped influence that decision because he had quit a job to run Slednecks. And he was like, he goes, the only piece of advice I'm going to give you is that whatever you decide to do, you got to jump in with both feet. Like whether you stay or go or whatever, you can't just dip a toe. Like if you're going to do it, you got to do it. And so that decision took about a month to make for me.
Mine took about 12 minutes.
Yeah. Cause I was married at the time.
Yeah.
I was talking about starting a family and, all these variables that I'm like, man, I'm pretty comfortable and
dang. Yeah, that's
so
big.
it took a while, and that's the final decision because I was kind of leaning towards staying.
Yeah.
At Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
I was like, and
but dude, we had a first class.
I almost missed that flight. In fact, anyway. So yeah, when my boss Mark, he was like, man, you gotta give it a shot. Like, that was not the answer I was expecting from him. I expected him to be like, oh, you got to be responsible, and he was like, you got to do it.
Well,
so that's when I was like, I'm in.
What's pretty cool. So Paul gets the call, does the same. I mean, him and I are both. I'm joking, right? It took way longer than 12 minutes to make that decision, but it was literally like, I go to my wife, talk to her about, and I don't even remember what that conversation was. Maybe it was just like me asking for permission, but already knowing I'm doing it. I don't
not really caring about what you said.
I don't really care what you're gonna say, but no. But really, I had so I'm same deal. I'm joking. I didn't have any money in 2005. I didn't have any money, but then I actually got a real job, a district sales manager at Arctic, working my butt off, trying to still do freestyle, but making good money. That's 2006, 2007, and then get this call. And so same deal, right? Like you have your boss and I have my boss at Arctic, and I just got the sweaty palms. I got to make the call, and same exact thing. It got the exact opposite answer of what I thought, right? Like, he's like, dude, you should do it.
That's awesome.
I mean, you're young. You have your whole life to work.
Yeah.
And that's what's great, right? Like, and it's no different than if in our position that we are now, right now, if someone came to me and said, like, man, I got this opportunity, I'm making this, like, dude, bail.
Yeah, go.
I mean, shit, we work every single day. I promise you, the work will still be there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You only get those. I mean, I've had these conversations with Kyle and Ross and Sayan, and I'm like,
sure.
Fly, butterfly.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you've done for me, and just fly.
Yeah.
So, so we make the call. We quit our jobs. and we go and jump on a plane to, well, and actually, rewind a couple things, right? We had to figure out, like, are we going to make any money? What kind of money are we talking here? What does it work, or how does it work, right? It was funny. The way the structure is.
So I did all that.
You did it.
I did it all.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. So, and I have to apologize for it because of the fact that we really, really screwed ourselves. We could have made so much more money.
They probably looked at
They were like, "Oh yeah, these guys, we'll sign them, get them in here." Yeah, we made pretty awesome money
in our world.
Yeah,
yeah,
and we could have made 3 times that or more.
Yeah,
yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So, it was still,
but it was a cool. I was pretty proud of that contract structure because it was like we got paid to be there, and then we got paid per like easy stunt, and then we got paid for each hard stunt.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty.
And
we got set on fire.
Yeah. Well, it was just so awesome. Like Paul and I in the mornings, because it didn't matter who did the actual stunt. So Paul and I, we're like paper, rock, scissors for who's going to get.
You want this one? I'm like, you take this one. I'm not that good at that. Like the backflip one, I'm like, I feel pretty comfortable. I could, but you do it. You're better at those. Yeah. And I was like, I'll do. They're like, Chris was up for getting set on fire. And you're like, I don't want that one. Paul, you get set on fire. That was pretty awesome.
I mean, and so Joe Duncan went over there with us. He kind of helped with the coordination of stuff, and I think he just went over there just to hang out. And,
Swedish girls. Yeah,
pretty much. But that was. I mean, talk about probably, well, it is and has been since the only time I have flown first class overseas.
Same.
Literally, you and I just quit our jobs. We've got slippers on in our full reclined.
Dude, that was so awesome.
Living like kings right now. Like, oh, okay.
What's funny is I actually flew over with she's probably some sort of famous Instagram model now. She was a model girlfriend of one of the, I don't know, Utah Jazz players or something. Yeah, I had a really rough first class flight with it.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yes.
So
tough life.
We jump off the cliff. We are going to go do this, and we get to meet Vin Diesel, and that was a really cool thing.
Super cool.
Right. And so, and both you and I will never forget this, right? Like, we're like, man, dude, what is it like to you have your own plane, you literally planed in vitamin water here because they didn't have it. And, and all he is doing is asking like, what's it like to be a Sledneck?
Yeah. He was so pumped.
He was so pumped.
Dude, I got in so much trouble that day. I took him offset riding. You
and me both. You got in trouble, and then he jumped off that freaking rock cliff and threw the sled, and he's all and the producers are just like, oh,
they were freaking out. Yeah, they couldn't find him, and he just wanted to learn how to jump.
Yeah,
that was super cool.
Yeah.
He was a fun guy, man. He was super super fun. Knew exactly could recite the exact verbiage from the movie, word for word. It was from Slednecks. That was pretty. It was
really cool.
Yeah.
He was a Slednecks fan.
He was, absolutely.
Yeah. So we survived Sweden. We make a little money. For me, so between X Games and Sweden, that's what I looked at from a job perspective of okay, this was enough to start Brandt's Backcountry Adventure for me, right? So that Hollywood money, that was $50,000 for me. X Games was about the same between Monster and X Games. So I have some money to go all in for Brandt's Backcountry Adventure. After Sweden, what does that look like for you? Where are you going?
So I had, right before I had left Wells Fargo and everybody knew, that I was leaving, it was you'll be back in 6 weeks or whatever. You'll be back in a year, 2 years, whatever. So when I got home, I was no longer married. Well, that happened before I left.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So, that didn't work out so good. Anyway, so when I got home, I was all moneyed up, and I basically was looking for a commuter car because all I had was my big Ford F-250 for driving around town. So I was shopping for a beater car, ended up somehow at the Mercedes lot on a sunny June Alaska summer day.
No.
and left that with a SL 500 convertible. And
Pretty practical beater car.
That was kind of my FU to everybody who didn't think I was going to be able to make this work.
Yeah.
I still have that car in my garage.
You do?
Absolutely.
Dude, that is cool.
Yeah. I will never sell it. Like my wife's like, we don't need that car. I'm like, honey, you don't understand how bad I need that car. Like that car's never going anywhere.
That's right. Yep.
But yeah, so again, I was financially in a pretty solid position because we made some pretty good money, and that's kind of like from that point, now I'm getting calls of, do you want to come, be a part of, just appearance stuff, and but then we started working on the goal of jumping a football field was still very much there.
Okay.
And then
was it a mental want or financial want or both?
Well, both. Yeah, I mean,
needed to be both.
I was
at that
motivated.
Point, right?
Like I knew if I had structured it so if I did jumps, I'd get paid.
100%.
So I was that's when Ross Mercer was doing some stuff, and he actually went bigger than the second one we did at Canterbury. So he's the current record holder. So I was like, sweet. So we have to do another one now. Anyway, so we started that.
Was he Red Bull at that
Red
time?
Bull,
so
yeah.
now it's easy to get Monster on board. Yep.
So we started planning to do another jump at Canterbury.
Okay.
And then I believe it was right around that, maybe later in the fall when X Games, because I think they did 2 years of freestyle and
07,
before
08.
Speed and Style came around. And Duncan called me, and he's like, got an event for at X Games. And I was like, tell me about it. He's like, well, you're going to have to learn to do freestyle. Yep. And I was like, okay, I feel pretty comfortable. I can do that. Like I got the jumping part. I just got to learn how to do tricks. So yeah, I started looking at getting an IQ, for freestyle. That kind of was all just heading in the right direction. I think because 08 was my first competition. So I guess they had freestyle and speed and style. In
08, yep.
And that was, we completely missed my backflip crash in Alaska.
Yeah.
So in 06.
Yeah.
So in 06, we'll zip back for a second. I was, it was 05 when I did the first one.
Yeah.
And we were in the backcountry.
So 05, you're right.
Huge year, man. Huge.
So talk about backflips, right? And of course, we got to go back in the OG Jim Rippey, right? Like it did it on a 01
700
summit,
big,
right?
Long track.
And then there was a little bit of a lull, and then now people are starting to do some backflips. And I remember I tried my first backflip in the backcountry in 05 and wadded all my stuff there. That didn't turn out very well. And so let's hear about your attempt.
I think my first one was in 06 in the backcountry.
Yep.
On an Arctic. Yep. Yeah, because 06, 07 I was Arctic. And I had grown up with a trampoline in the yard, and I could do backflips super easy. So I was like, man, it's got to be the same, right?
Sure.
That's what I'm thinking. And I watched lots of video and watch it, and I did it in my head a million times. Anyway, so we had done a segment in my fashion. We went up, did a few jumps for it, and then I did another record jump, big backcountry jump. And then Giles or Sebastian, they're like, well, what do you want to do now? And I'm like, I want a backflip. Like all in the same day. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, what the hell? Let's do it. So because they had a flip jump dug. Anyway, so we went and checked it out and, shined up the face a little bit. And I just remember coming at the first one, and I'm like, okay, just remember, so you got to just hold it wide open. So I just got upside down and I hit the brake.
Oh, no, because that's
in your mind. That's
in your mind, 100%.
That's jumping. You're at the apex and you just tap the brake, and I'm like, and I got away from it. And anyway, the sled was fine. I was fine, and I'm like, okay, we're doing it again. So I, came around to do it again, and I just remember in my mind thinking chalkboard, like blank chalkboard, like just blank chalkboard. As I'm going in the ramp, I'm like blank chalkboard, and I did it and held it wide open and came around and landed it perfect, and I was like, okay, let's go home. Sweet. So I was like, I'm the man. Like I was the man.
I can jump big.
Summer.
I can backflip.
I was like, oh yeah. So anyway, the next next spring, this is 07 spring, we went down to, it was Slush Cup, the big Alyeska spring party. We were down there all night, and then we're going to Turnagain riding the next day. And I'm like, I didn't really party, but I was up and hanging out. And get up there the next day, and I'm like, and I was on those 600 mods, which were just
raspy.
Gnarly. Yeah. So I come around and line up, same jump, and I'm going to stick this landing. I'm like, bro, I'm pro, right? I got this. Come around, and I hit this thing, and I just moon launch. Like,
you're 900 feet in the air.
I mean, it was like 100 feet to where I landed. It was a huge flip. Anyway, I got upside down, and then the sled starts corking out. And I'm like, oh, and I'm hanging on. And then I finally, last minute, I tried to, like, the sled had come all the way around, and it's landing like this. And I tried to push away and get away from it. And the sled lands, and I landed right on back on it. And I broke my nose, eye socket, cheekbone, right ankle, left leg, and left arm. Smashed. The handlebars came underneath my helmet. Caught the throttle block, caught my face. Like, well, you could see the scar goes to about mid-cheek. I mean, I was just laid open. I had busted teeth, busted chin. I mean, it smashed my face. And I remember my buddy Tyson Johnson, I'm laying there, you know, trying to get my breath. And I never, like, got knocked out. I was awake, and I could immediately tell that my right leg was broken. I could feel it, like, in the boot. And everything else, I was like, okay, I can move everything. And I can remember Tyson, my buddy Jay peels my helmet off of my cheek, like, stuck to the helmet. And Tyson's going, oh my God, don't tell him what he looks like. I'm like, bro, I can hear you.
I'm right here.
I'm right here. One guy was like, oh, dry heaving. It was not a good scene. And they're like, okay, we gotta get the helicopter. We gotta get him helied out of here. I'm like, guys, we don't need a helicopter. Like, we can ride me out. Somebody get down here and get underneath me, and I'll hop up the hill. So I got Spike Lasky on one side, Jay Bitney on the other, and they got me up, and I hopped up the hill on my broken leg because it just wasn't as broken as the other leg. And then got me on a sled, and Spike rode me 2 up out and threw me in the back of the truck, and we're, like, ripping to the hospital. Called the ambulance, and they're like, oh, we meet you in Girdwood in 45. And Spike's like, yeah, bullshit, we'll be at the hospital in 20. Like,
yeah.
And Jay's filming me in the back of the truck. Like, I've got this amazing footage, and he's like, Thacker, how many girls did you wake up with this morning? And I was like, not enough. And at the time, Dane had Ferguson, you know, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Had said something about all the top athletes have metal in their body or something like that. So I'm in the back all mangled, and I'm like, all the top athletes have metal in their body. Yeah, it was, I'm pretty sure. And so they got me to the hospital, got me, you know, getting ready to put me back together. And the nurse, Jay one of them was still filming in the hospital. And I was asking the nurse if they could do a penis enlargement as they're rolling me back.
Typical.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
Up to that point, was that your gnarly?
That was the only time I'd ever broken a bone.
Yep.
In my whole life.
Damn.
And a bunch of ribs were broke. It was a
bad one.
It was a bad one. I had 170 stitches right here in my face. Jeez. Like, they had to reattach my lip to my jaw inside, and yeah, my teeth went through my lip. All these scars are from the same crash.
Damn.
So,
that was a bad
fast forward now, Joe Duncan calls. He's like, you got to learn how to freestyle. And I'm like, okay, that means I got to learn how to backflip.
And you hadn't flipped since that.
I had not even thought of it. I'm like, I don't need to do that shit. That's for the birds. Brent can do all the flips he wants. I'm out.
Yep.
Anyway, so I kind of made the conscious decision then that if I was going to do this, I was going to do it.
Got to go to X Games.
Yeah. If I'm going to go to X Games, I'm going to learn how to flip. I'm going to be good at it. I'm going to figure it out. And I did.
Yeah.
It was bar none the most terrifying thing I have ever done. And it was such a mental cluster F to get over that fear that I was going to smash myself again.
Yeah.
And that was probably still one of, as far as like personally being proud of an accomplishment, that's probably one of the proudest moments, being able to stick that first one and like, oh, I got this. And then because we were together in Steamboat when I did it for the first time again. Yep. And then to do that first one and then just to roll in and do one after another, after another, after another. And I was like, and they were easy. And I'm like, oh, I was like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, you're right. That is one of those moments in life because what happened, like, so no different than '05 was my first attempt at a backflip. Luckily, I didn't get hurt, but it was pretty mentally dejecting to not be able to get it done. And I didn't flip until 2 weeks prior to X Games, and me just saying the same thing, like, dude, I
gotta do it.
gotta do it. And so, like, to be able to accomplish something that literally, we all, the 4-letter word that is unacceptable is can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do a backflip. And then I did
Yeah.
a backflip, and there's no feeling better than something like that. And so here we go. Right. So it's like, you've got backflips on lock. They're almost easier than doing an upside up trick, right?
Yeah,
right
so
side up trick.
in the 100%.
Yeah.
Like I was.
That's where I got to as well, which is crazy to think.
I could go out and, like, at the 08 X Games, I was the guy that I flipped all the jumps first before anybody else, just because I felt more comfortable. Like, first hits, I would miss. Like, I'd go a little short or a little long. If I flipped it, I'd grease it every time. It was wild.
Yeah.
In fact, my mechanic, Jay, he's like, after a while in practice, he comes over, he's like, you cannot do another backflip until you do your other tricks, which I had like 3.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but I mean, I was learning one-handed flips at X Games, like, just because the sled was just set up so good, and it was just, oh my gosh, that was awesome. I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I thought I was pretty cool again then.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know where this is going. So next, okay. So '08, how X Games, how'd that all go?
So it went okay. So I unfortunately had like in my practice before we went, I sucked a reed, and the sled wouldn't run, and I crashed it trying to flip out of the gate, and I ended up riding Norgard's sled, and it just wasn't the same. I didn't have a great run. I think I ended up 4th at Speed and Style, which was okay, but I've really felt like I was podium able for that. That was like a tailor-made event for me.
Exactly. Wanted a medal.
And it, and then we did freestyle again the next, and Speed and Style in 08, 09, and then 2010 was my last able body X Games.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So 2010, what event are you getting ready for?
So I was doing, I think 2010 I did best trick, Speed and Style, or best trick and freestyle.
Cool.
So I did the remote control backflip.
Yeah.
Which nobody knows about. There's like the entire internet's been scrubbed of that footage. It's hilarious. How I didn't die on that one that's still a mystery. But
yeah.
And then that was I guess it would have been in between those was 09 was the 300-foot world record. So we did the 07 or 08 was the blizzard. Then we did 09. We went back to Canterbury. Again, that's when I crashed twice because we had this 40-mile-an-hour headwind that kept gusting and floating me. Dude, that was wild. I had to like go into the ramp faster and actually chop the power so you would endo almost, and then I could bring it back. But if I went off like normal, the wind would catch me and just I crashed twice. And Keegan was like, "We're done. We're shutting it down." I'm like, "Bullshit!" Like we're gonna anyway. That's the one I went 277, and then
how about that feeling when you jump and you hit the brake and it goes like this?
Dude, you can hear it on the video. I'm like, anyway, so after that one, I was like, okay. I was kind of fed up with the not doing the 300-foot. So we sat down with Joe and Monster, and I'm like, next year we're going to find a place, and I'm going to book a week. We're going to build. Anyway, that's when we went to BIR, Brainerd International Raceway, and I had the setup for a week. We had it built, and I had it from Monday to Sunday night, and it wasn't open. It was a closed event. It wasn't, no spectators. There were a few, but and we were just the goal was to just do the 300-foot. I was over it. Like, we needed to make this happen.
Yeah.
And we did. Yeah. And it was it was a little, I disappointing isn't the right word. It was just I mean, I was super stoked.
Yeah.
But I didn't quite feel as accomplished as
fulfilled.
I expected to.
Mm-hmm.
Because we'd done it enough times, and I think part of it is I just knew we were fully capable to go, and it just took longer than I wanted it to, and it was more relief than like finally we made it happen, and yeah, so that was a big, so all of that. X Games was good, world record, and I'm like, I'm
Cloud 9, man.
I'm making a pile of money. I mean, I was making like $300,000 a year. Like I was rolling.
Dude, that's
awesome.
awesome.
I'd get $10,000 for a show, and I mean, I was like, dude, I was
rock star.
For a couple. Yeah. It was pretty amazing. So yeah, all summer it was, and really, how it is. Like there was stuff to do and get paid for pretty much every month out of the year. You were doing a couple things, and dealers, special event appearances. It was like, wow, yeah, I'm on the roll now.
Yeah.
And then it would have been November of 2010 when getting ready for 2011 X Games early at Hoyer's in Wisconsin. Justin Hoyer is when I crashed and broke my back.
So let me ask you this, Paul. Can you do a podcast in the morning?
I can.
Or are you leaving?
No, I can. We got time.
Because
finish it.
Here's what I want to do. Is we're an hour and 10 in, and
Part A, Part B.
I think so, because this next portion is we haven't even.
It's like a whole nother life, man.
It's another life, right?
Yeah.
So
no, for sure.
I'd love to do that tomorrow morning. We haven't even talked about, like you just said, special events. Dude, we got to race the Baja frickin' 1000 together.
Dude, yeah.
So
I feel like there should be a movie.
There could be a movie. I mean, we have.
Hey, Bob Brown, hit us up.
Yeah.
Let's make a movie.
Yeah. So here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna cut this one. I hope you enjoy it. Like, I've been looking forward to this for like many years, and I finally just like, hey, Paul, we're doing this. The mental commitment to go all in, no matter what it is, if it's in snowmobiling or your place at work or whatever, it's
like the secret.
Yeah, it is, man.
I mean, and it's like not a secret. It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, just to like everything, and this has been something since I was a little kid. Like my mom laughs about it. Like everything that I have ever found that I love, you get it all. Like there's no halfway. Like I don't have hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
I have the next thing that I want to try to be a professional at. Like it was like that with, hockey. It was like that at Wells Fargo. Like I was going to crush everyone. Like that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Snowmobiling, it's the same. Like I want to be the best in the world at this. Even if I don't end up being that, like that's the goal. Like now we're, I'm doing RC racing because I don't want to beat the shit out of myself anymore. And I'm like, I want to be the best. Whether I ever will or not is yet to be seen. Yeah. Probably not. But that's the mindset. Like, I'm going to win. I'm going to be the best. You get 100% of me.
Yeah.
It's just, and not everybody's wired that way, but if you can find what you love and go all in, it's impossible to fail regardless of where you go or how high you get.
It's funny, you guys who have listened to our podcast, it's the reason that Paul and I are long lost brothers. I mean, our mindset we don't get to hang out a bunch once a year pretty much, and because of Paul, and we'll get to that in podcast number 2. But that mindset is something you can't teach. You either have it or you don't. However, it's something that I try to instill in my kids, just like you will instill into your son. It's something that I try to instill into every single person that comes here, all my guys, employees. It's kill mode. And to live life like that, and we talk about that, whether you succeed in kill mode or fail in kill mode, it's still,
as far as I'm concerned, it's still a success.
It's still a success. It's the most rewarding thing. And you have, like, it was hockey and snowmobiling and RC cars. You know, mine was, as I was a kid, it was soccer, and then it was snowmobiling, and now it's hunting for me, and it's awesome. It's such a
I don't even, I mean, honestly, I don't know any other way.
Yeah.
It's just, but it is, it's the same, like all the, you know, the guys that I work with closely, it rubs off.
Yeah,
for sure.
it does.
Like people, it definitely rubs off.
Cool. So we're gonna wrap this up. We'll be back tomorrow morning, which that doesn't mean anything for you guys listening to this, but we'll be back for podcast number 2. We're in podcast number 2. We're going to be covering. We got to dive into Baja. That was cool.
Rad, yeah.
But then we're going to talk about your transition from being a very able person on 2 feet to being a very able person in a wheelchair.
Hot Wheels.
And more importantly, what that has done for your direction in life now that, in my opinion, has trumped everything you've done
for sure
previously, which was some pretty big shit. So, Thacker, I appreciate you joining me today, and we'll knock this out. And actually, dude,
we're going to go ride.
Dude, we get to go ride. We're taking a bunch of incredible humans. We've got some vets here at BBA, all thanks to Paul and his foundation and Monster and Polaris and all those guys. So we're going to go ride snowmobiles with some cool dudes, and then we'll be doing podcast number 2 tomorrow. So check it out.